Hey, how's it going? Jason here, and in this episode we're going to be talking about wire cutters. So in previous episodes I talked about branch cutters and shears. So today we're going to talk about wire cutters, what I consider another essential tool that you should have in your bonsai toolkit. So in front of me I've got 8 different types of wire cutters. I've got 4 different styles, and then I'll run through with you, what I think is the advantages of each. Hopefully that'll help you guys decide which wire cutter will suit your needs. The first wire cutter I have here is the hardware store wire cutter. And this is, most people think that they can get away with just using something like this, but what you'll find is that when you use this on, say, thicker wire, say 7mm aluminum wire, you'll find that this won't actually do what you need it to do. It'll cut, but you gotta make sure you cut it right here at the joint. And also when you try to make a cut, if it's already on the tree, if the wire's on the tree, this point right here will dig right into the tree. And I'll demonstrate that for you so you kind of know why there's sort of specially made bonsai wire cutters specifically for bonsai, as opposed to just grabbing up a hardware store wire cutter. So these smaller shears, this one right here, this smaller wire cutter, this is a Masakuni. But this one, the reason I have this one is because you can easily palm it in your hand as you're wiring. So as you're wiring a tree, you can easily make a cut quickly and easily just by using this guy. The problem is that it's Masakuni, so it's going to run a little bit, kind of expensive. So unless you really do a lot of wiring and you want speed, this might not be the thing to get. And here I've got my little bud shear. This is a Yagimitsu bud shear. And what's nice about this is that this is actually good for cutting, little branches, but it's heavy duty enough that you can also cut small sizes of wire. So this can also be palmed as well. So if you're wiring, you can still maneuver this one right here and cut branches and cut wire at the same time. And this is going to be a lot more affordable than, say, a Masakuni. And probably my favorite style of wire cutter are these scissor style ones, and those would be these ones right here. I've got 3 different ones. I've got 2 different brands, and I've got 2 different types of material. I've got the carbon steel one right here, carbon steel scissor style wire cutter right here. This is a Ryuga one. I've got the stainless steel one right here. This is a Ryuga one as well. And then I've got the Shisei one that's part of my toolkit. And this one right here, it's a made in Japan one. So the advantage of the scissor style ones is that you can easily, you loop your fingers in like this, just like this. You can easily cut any of the wire quickly and with control as well. So you can get in there and you can put this, you can palm this as well. But you can easily cut the wire just with an easy, simple ordinary scissor movement. It's just like this. And the loops help you keep the keep the wire cutters on your fingers. So this is a very good tool if you're cutting, anything under 3. I mean, it can do, 4mm as well on the aluminum wire, but anything under 3, if you're doing some fine detail wiring, you want to be fast, this one is probably the most affordable and the quickest way to go. And in terms of material, as previously stated in my other videos, the stainless steel ones are good for if you don't want it to, if you leave them outside, you don't want them to rust, that's good for the stainless steel. They essentially function exactly the same, these 2 right here. They function exactly the same. It just comes down to the material and which one you think, you'll need, which one sort of suits the way that you handle your tools or take care of your tools. And if you want something that performs a little bit better, you can move up to the Shisei wire cutter right here, the scissor style one. And this one right here, I mean, you could tell that it's a little higher quality than this one if you feel it. And then it'll cut, I've had this one for a really long time, and you can tell by how dirty it is right there. It's been through a lot of uses and it still functions perfectly. And this one, so this is a great tool. If you want to move into made in Japan, the Shisei wire cutters are very good. And then for the heavy duty ones, I've got 2. I've got a made in China one right here, and I've got a made in Japan one right here. Now these tools right here are used for cutting the bigger wire, like 7mm or really thick wire that the scissor style ones can't do. And they're designed like this to give you the most and the widest handle here to give you the most leverage to cut thicker wire. Now the reason that these wire cutters are useful is that they make cutting the thicker wire very easy. So sometimes with the hardware store wire cutters, you'll struggle to cut a thicker piece of wire, but with one of these guys, it'll just cut through it like butter. I've also got one more. I just got this from my warehouse, forgot to bring it out, but this is a Ryuga heavy duty wire cutter as well. And for these wire cutters, it does make a difference in the quality that you want. And the heavy duty wire cutters, if you go with the cheapest one here, this is just the made in China generic one. If you go with one of these, it is going to be a little bit difficult to cut some wire. It's not going to function as well. You know, it's a little tough like that. And also when you go to cut it, sometimes they'll have little grooves inside here that won't get the wire perfectly. So that's kind of a downside to a lower quality made in China wire cutter. But it doesn't mean that made in China is bad. If you move up to the Ryuga brand right here, these heavy duty wire cutters actually function really well. You know, you can tell, look right there. It's a good, nice flush cut, and these ones will cut through very easily as well. The made in Japan ones, I have this one. It's a little bit longer in length right here. You can kind of see it's a little bit longer. This one, I like the handle of it, the shape of it. You know, it's a little longer, and I can get a little bit more force when I go to cut heavier wire. But either way, both of these actually function very well. So you've got all these different wire cutters. You know, which one do you end up choosing? I mean, if you've got to choose just one, I mean, choose the heaviest one. You know, choose this one if you want to save a little bit of money. Go with the made in China ones. You know, I would recommend at least the Ryuga ones, the higher quality ones, than the base generic ones. These ones don't work too well, and you'll get a little frustrated after a while. But these ones right here will cut almost all the wire without any issue. So if you have to go with one wire cutter, I'd probably go with the heavy duty wire cutter. It lets you do the heavier wire, the thicker wire, but it also lets you do the smaller wire as well. And then if you want to get a second wire cutter, that's where I would kind of recommend the Scissor Style. You know, here you got the stainless steel one. These are really good for when you're doing the detail wire and you're working with smaller wire. And you know, most of the time you won't be working with 6-7 millimeter aluminum wire. So you can work with the smaller wire, you can use one of these. And this will make quick work of any smaller wire, say under 3 millimeter. Another nice thing about these is that since they're smaller, they fit in your pocket really easily. So if you have something like this, just throw it in your pocket while you're working, you take it out and then cut the wire and then just keep on going. So which wire cutter do I have in my toolkit? I've got the heavy duty made in Japan one right here. I've got the Scissor Style one right here. You know, you can tell by the orange tape. I've got this, these are part of it. And then I've got the Masakuni one right here. But the one that I use to get the most mileage out of is actually this Scissor Style one. And this one is the one that I almost use all the time and is always in my pocket when I'm working with bonsai. So I'm going to do a quick demonstration. I'll show you how, I've got some thicker wire over here. I'll show you how these wire cutters work with, when it's actually cutting wire, so you can get an idea of how it's going to perform. So here I've got some thicker wire right here, and I've got my heavy duty made in Japan ones right here. And if I just cut off a piece like this, you can see that all I have to do is just make a simple effort like that, and it cuts the wire with no problem. If I decide to go with the, this is the made in Japan carbon steel. If I go with the made in China one right here, this is the Ryuga one, and I cut the same size wire, it's the same thing. It cuts off just like nothing, and it leaves a little bit groove like this and comes off very easily. And I'll do it again. So this one right here, the made in Japan Ryuga one, I just put it right there, make the cut, really simple, no effort, and it comes off. So if I go with the made in China generic one, I've got this one right here. If I try to make this cut, you can see it kind of doesn't fit as well, but I have to make a little bit more effort. And it'll still cut, still cuts. You can see it still cuts, but I have to maneuver it a little bit more to make sure it does it. And there is a little bit more force to it, but it'll still do it. And these guys right here, the Scissor Style, like this, it just won't do it. It starts to make a groove right there, but it won't make the cut. You'll actually damage the tool if you try to cut it. But if you've got, your smaller wire right here, move the big one away. If you got the smaller wire and you try to cut it with the Scissor Style, then it's no problem, right? Simple cut, just like that. And with the stainless steel China, small cut, no problem. Carbon steel China, same thing, no problem. Butt shears even, when it gets smaller like this, no problem, still cut it. Just don't go too big on these, otherwise you'll damage them. And then of course the Masakuni ones that I have right here, just part of my toolkit right here, makes quick work of it as well. Okay, and now to illustrate a little bit, I've got a little sacrifice, got a little branch here that I wired up really quickly just to demonstrate, to see, so you can see how the wire cutters work. But if you come along here, see I've got my, I've got my heavy duty wire cutter like this, okay? If you look at this when I make the cut with this, the way it's designed is that it won't, since it's got that sort of blunt point right there at the end right here, it's all smooth right there, it won't dig into the branch when I cut it. So say I cut this part right here, right there, if I cut that right there, you'll see that it doesn't damage the branch underneath, right along here, right, even if it's right up against it, it won't damage it. As opposed to if I have my hardware store wire cutters like this, okay, got my hardware store wire cutters like this, you can see that if I try to make this cut here, and I try carefully not to cut it right there, the branch, it's first going to be harder because, you know, the hardware store wire cutters aren't meant to be just cut at the tip there. But if I make that cut, it always ends up making some type of dent in the branch right there. You know, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little bit of damage to the cambium right here. That's kind of peeled away right there. You can see a little bit of damage right there. And that's because of this pointy edge on here on the hardware store wire cutter. And if I try to use a scissor style or something like this on this wire, that's just not gonna do it. So this will protect as well. See how it's got that blunt point as well on the end right there. It's all smooth and blunt, but it won't, this one just won't cut this wire. And you know, wire cutters aren't the most exciting tool to have, but if you pick the right one, it'll make, you know, when you're working on trees and you're wiring trees, it'll make the job a lot easier and you'll enjoy it a lot more. So thanks for watching. Hopefully that was helpful. And if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, I've put all the links to all the products in the description below to our site. So check us out if you can. It's easternleaf.com.